Welcome everyone, thank you for joining me today. My name is Natalie and I will be practicing this beginner sequence with you today. So don't worry if you haven't done any yoga before. I will be guiding you through the postures that we'll be exploring to help find a little bit more space. So hop into something super comfy, it doesn't have to be a fancy yoga outfit. And I also recommend finding something that will help to bring the earth up to you in our practice. So fancy yoga blocks and bricks are obviously great, but if we don't have them, can we just find like a big book or maybe a glass Tupperware box or something, anything that we have around the house? Can we really make our home practice work for us? So whenever you're ready, we will come down onto the ground, lying down on the floor. So move all of your props or cookbooks, as mine are, out of the way for now, and come to find a space on your mat or on your carpet, your floor, with the knees bent and the soles of the feet to the earth, about as wide as our mat. So we're allowing the knees to collapse in towards each other and resting the hands one on top of the other on the stomach area. And if we want to, we can bring a blanket or towel underneath the head or a pillow if we do have any fussiness in the neck area. But whenever you've arrived in this space, start to right away tap into your breath. We're taking an inhale in through the nose and an exhale through the nose. We aren't trying to do anything fancy here, anything mystical. We're just connecting and becoming aware of something that happens all day, every day. But we rarely take the time to really listen to it and give it the chance to help us. As we breathe, can you notice the stomach space rising and inflating like a balloon as you inhale, and as you exhale, everything emptying out. Stomach softens down towards the back body, and then we continue just like this. And sometimes when we find stillness, our thoughts can start to bombard us. And they start to come in loud and clear in the front of our mind. So notice whenever this happens. And instead of attaching ourselves to our thoughts and getting distracted by them trailing off and allowing our mind to jump off the mat, can we instead just notice? And every time we notice, just bring ourselves back to our breath, into this space where we can feel our hands touching our stomach with every rise and every fall, with every inhale and with every exhale. And if you haven't closed the eyes or softened the gaze already, feel free to do so now if you feel comfortable doing this. And we'll find 5 more breaths here. Notice the lungs filling up as you breathe in, and everything emptying out as you breathe out. And that's all we're doing here. Nothing fancy, nothing super special. We're just breathing with intention. And finding some soft movement in our body. You can keep the eyes closed or open them if you need to, peeking at the video, whatever you need to. We'll roll the right thigh out and the left thigh in. Keeping the feet nice and wide as we soften the knees over to the right side of the mat. And coming back through center and over to the left side, moving the knees like windscreen wipers. 2 more times onto each side, just keeping the lower back, the hips, the spine nice and soft. And whenever you finish, taking your time to arrive there, we'll come back to center and meet. Hugging the knees in towards you, but taking them wide, just about as wide as your armpit, so we can find lots of space in the area around the sacrum. We'll take our hands onto our knees or our shins and start to rock from side to side. And then coming back to center, taking the hands onto the knees. As we open the knees out wide, sending them around in opposite circles, in opposite directions, we'll start to find circles. Nice, all the way around. And then back together and in. Lovely, keep moving here. And start to notice the space we have around the hips today. Just be aware as we move through our postures that how we feel today might be really different to how we felt yesterday, or how we felt last week, or how we might feel in the future. So just being really present with exactly how we feel today, sending our circle in the opposite direction. And if somewhere feels a little bit stickier, we might like to stay there, and then send our breath there for a moment or two before coming back to our circles. Nice, and coming back to center, we'll bring our feet onto the ground and our hands onto our 2 bony hip points either side of our pelvis. So starting to explore our pelvis space as we rock these 2 points forward, noticing how our lower back arches off the mat, and then rock them all the way back so our lower back becomes flush with the mat. And just a couple more times here, forwards and back. This isn't a really big move, so just exploring the space we have today. And then coming all the way back to center, finding the space in the middle of these 2 points. So our backs are either arching all the way off or coming completely flush. Just coming to that space right in the center. And staying here, keeping the hands where they are on the hip points. As we start to float the feet off the ground, bring the shins so they're parallel to the sky. And if our hip space, pelvis space has started to change, maybe we rock forwards and we're arching a bit more, or we've rocked back. Can we bring the knees a little bit closer towards our chest and heart space to find this central point in the pelvis again? And then releasing both feet back down. As soon as the toes touch down, lifting them back up. Nice. Breathing here as we connect to our deep abdominals muscles. And lifting all the way up. Nice. Keep moving. And if you really feel the spines keep grounding or arching off, we might like to come to 1 foot at a time. Just building your practice at your own pace. Lovely. And then wherever we are, everybody interlacing the hands behind the back body. Lift both of the legs now. As we take the elbows nice and wide, we'll lift our head, neck and shoulders off the ground. Start to notice maybe a bit more of a deeper connection to your stomach. Maybe it's whirring around like a washing machine, and if it is, that's okay. Just keep breathing softly. And then either 2 times with both feet, lifting and lowering, or 1 time each side, lifting and lowering. Nice. Coming all the way back up to center, hugging the knees in, curling the forehead towards the knees into a tight ball, and then softening the feet to the ground, hands down by our sides. As we root into the palms, into the soles of the feet, we'll lift the tailbone off the earth, peeling the spine off the mat 1 vertebrae at a time, finding 2-foot support. Lifting the hips, taking a breath, and then slowly rolling the spine back down onto the earth. Moving here, tailbone touches down last of all. Can we notice and see if we can feel our spine peeling off and lowering back down as individual parts, one by one, each vertebra at a time. And we keep the toes on the ground. Feel the connection through all sides of the feet. And then one more time, we'll lift all the way back up. And all the way back down. 2 options here depending on where you are in your practice. You can either roll onto the right side and use the palms to lift you. We'll come together into a seat, or you might like to explore hands to the hamstrings, chin towards the chest, and just rolling up and down the length of our spine. Taking a couple more rolls here, just wakening up the back body. And we'll come to meet everyone in a comfortable seat. So, lifting your hips up onto something to find a little bit more space around this area. You might like to lift onto one of your books, or a pillow, a cushion, anything at all. I'm going to take my cookbook here and find a bit more space by lifting my hips up onto this. So nice. Feels good. You can come to a Sukhasana like I am here, or if this doesn't feel good, if there's any fussiness in the knees, just find any other comfortable seat that does feel good for you. So really listening to your body and feeling present. Wherever we are, we'll find this length through our spine. So growing tall all the way from the tailbone to the crown of the head, and softening the shoulders from beneath the ears. Taking the hands out wide, reaching the fingertips towards the sky, gazing up if we can, and then softening all the way back down. We're like a bird spreading our wings for the first time. Lifting and releasing. One more time. Can we marry our breath to our movement here? And releasing. Gorgeous. Bringing the left hand to the outside of the right thigh. We'll swing our right hand all the way behind us. And then we're coming into a twist. Really finding this rotation through our rib cage, through the center of our body and our thoracic spine, rather than our head, neck or shoulder. So we're not just hoisting our upper body back, but really finding this rotation through our center. Getting some blood flowing through our spine. With every inhale, reminding ourselves to keep nice and tall. Softening the shoulders, and on every exhale, perhaps we explore our twist a little more. And if our hand doesn't come onto the ground here, doesn't feel comfortable, again we can use anything we have to add a little height and bring the ground up to us. We're finding one more breath here before traveling back to center. Bringing the right hand to the outside of the left leg, left hand all the way behind us, lifting tall, we inhale, and twisting, we exhale. And twisting is not only really good for our spine and our physical body, but also for for all of our insides. So we're massaging our internal organs, kick-starting the circulation, the digestive system, giving everything a good rinse. Finding 2 more breaths here. And on your last exhale, swivel all the way back to center. So bringing your right hand down onto your mat or onto your brick, block, book, anything at all. We'll float the left hand all the way towards the sky. So keeping this length, we'll keep lengthening as we fold over to the right side. Being mindful to keep lifting our heart space towards the sky. Notice if our left shoulder wants to collapse forwards, and maybe we don't fold so far if it does. However, we are just exploring this space through our left side body and through the ribs. Notice as well the right shoulder. Is it up here by the ear? And if so, can we find a little more space? Bending our elbow, softening the shoulder. 1 more breath here. Before floating the hands all the way up towards the sky, softening the left hand down, reaching the right arm up and then folding over. Nice, breathing in, breathing out. 2 more breaths here, keeping the lower body rooted down towards the ground. Coming all the way back to center, hands come onto the knees, we just roll all the way forwards and round all the way back. Just get some movement in the spine and in the opposite direction. Get the shoulders involved, the elbows, gorgeous. And floating back to center. We'll spread through our fingers as we jump forwards, coming into a tabletop pose, so all 4s here. With our wrists beneath our shoulders, our knees beneath our hips, we're finding a really sturdy posture. Keeping the fingers spread wide, rooting down through the tops of the feet, and exploring some spinal mobility in our cat-cows. So rolling the tailbone down to the ground. We'll arch our spine towards the sky, dropping our gaze in between our legs, cat pose. Keep pressing through the palms as we find a big breath in here. And then floating the tailbone up towards the sky. Rolling through the spine, tummy comes down to the earth, we lift our gaze. Cow pose. Keep floating here, forwards and back, starting the movement from your tailbone. Then rolling through each vertebra of the spine one by one, until your head moves last of all. And just like we did when we were on our back and our 2-foot support, can we imagine our spine moving as individual parts? Almost like a wave cresting and falling. Keeping this softness in the elbows, and as we come to our cow pose, noticing that we aren't compressing in the back of the neck, so keeping our head and neck an extension of our spine. 1 more time, float into your cat pose, really arching your spine like a Halloween cat, picturing this angry cat. And then floating all the way through into your cow pose. Nice, press through the palms, lift away from the shoulders. And then coming back to center, neutral spine. We'll tuck our toes under and start to roll all the way back over the feet, round and forwards over the wrists. Keep moving here. And maybe we find a circle-like shape, or maybe we just find some funky movement that kind of looks a bit weird maybe, but feels good. So get the hips going. Feel this movement in the shoulders, the elbows, the feet. We're finding space through the wrists. And send your circle in the opposite direction, really exploring the movement in the side body and the ribs. Nice, then coming all the way back to center, untucking the toes, but then sending the right leg back, toes tucked under. We'll rock forwards over the wrists and back over the foot, and then coming to center, we'll send our right leg off the ground, Keep really sending away through the heel. Imagine you're kicking the wall or the sofa or whatever is behind you. And notice if we're collapsing any of our weight into our left side. If we are, can we really notice this and actively lift away out of this hip? Maybe we bring our leg a little bit lower. Make sure we're not all the way up here, putting lots of pressure in different areas. So just finding a long line. And maybe we stay here, or we explore bringing the left hand to the center of the chest. And maybe we stay here, or reach the left hand all the way out in front, like you're shaking an imaginary person's hand. And if we do this, really sending actively through the heel and through the fingertips. Finding one more breath here before softening the right knee down, keeping everybody lifting the left hand forwards. And then swimming the left hand towards the sky and all the way back. And then lift it back towards the sky and all the way forwards. Then softening the left hand down onto the earth, tucking the toes under as we come to sit back on the feet. And if this is right away too much for the feet, we can either untuck the toes or work here. So keeping the toes tucked under but lifting onto the knees, so not as much pressure as on the feet. Wherever we are, just shaking out the wrists, giving them lots and lots of love. And if we ever need to, if we aren't used to being on our hands and knees, and our wrists are feeling a little bit tired, we can bring our hands to fists, just like this. So we're still strengthening the wrists, but just putting a little less pressure directly on this wrist space. So shaking everything out before jumping back into our tabletop and floating the left leg back, toes tucked under. Rock all the way forwards and all the way back. Then float through center and lift the left leg off the earth. Send away through the heel, kick the ground. Kick the wall behind you. Option to stay here. Maybe we explore sending the right hand to the center of the chest. And notice how one side might feel very different to the other. So being really, really present with how you feel right now. Maybe we float the right arm all the way forwards. Reaching through the fingertips, reaching through the heels if we choose this. Finding one more breath wherever we are. Before softening the left leg back down, everybody come to meet with the right hand reaching forwards. Swimming the fingertips towards the sky and back, just exploring the shoulder space. Then all the way back towards the sky and forwards. One more breath here. Before softening down onto the ground, lovely. Tucking the toes under. We'll walk the hands back, but this time we'll rock straight onto the feet, bending the knees and keeping the knees bent, but lengthening the legs as we fold forwards, crowd up the head down towards the ground, arms really soft and heavy like a rag doll. And the more we bend our knees, the more love we send to our lower back and spine. So really being kind to ourselves here as we find this gentle rock from side to side. Notice, are we creating any tension in the head and neck? Are we looking up like this? I know it's difficult if we're trying to watch the video, but trust me here, just soften the neck, take any tension away from this space, and keep breathing. Then floating back to center, scooting the feet to hips distance apart if they aren't already there. We'll root down through the soles of the feet into the earth as we slowly, really slowly, start to roll up to standing. Arms stay heavy, chin tucks into the chest until the last moment, but keep this even slower. Imagine each vertebra of your spine stacking one by one. We'll meet in a mountain pose. Feet hips distance apart, toes tracking forwards, knees over the toes. And then floating the arms wide. We'll reach for the sky and soften. Bending the knees even more, crossing the arms over as we lengthen to find space. And release. Are we breathing here once more? Hands reach. Palms come together this time. And all the way down at the heart center. And Anjali Mudra. Lovely. Releasing the hands. Tucking the chin in towards the chest and rolling all the way back down and through the spine. As you come down to the ground, walk the hands forwards. Release the knees, coming back into our tabletop. And then keeping the toes tucked under, we'll sit back on the heels. Reach the arms out in front. And finding this length through our spine as we press into the palms, we'll float the knees off the earth and lift the hips high. Downward facing dog. And don't worry if the heels are nowhere near the ground here. Really just start to pedal through the legs. Keep the knees nice and bent. And ask and see and feel, can we find or explore even more space from the tip of our tailbone to the crown of our head? Nice. And just wiggling the hips from side to side. Keep this nice and loose. One more breath here before slowly bringing the knees to the earth, tabletop. And from your tabletop, lift the right leg up and out to the side. So keeping this bend in the knee. No nicer way of saying this, but like a weeing dog up a fire hydrant or a lamp or whatever. And notice right away if you're collapsing into this left hip. So if we are, we might like to bring the leg down a little lower and really actively lift away. So notice this. And start to find 3 big circles in one direction. Imagine you're carving a line through space with the knee. And then whenever you're ready, send your circles in the opposite direction. Nice. Whenever you finish, bring the right knee down, lift the left knee up and out. And again, lifting away from this right hip as we find 3 circles one way and 3 circles the other way. Keeping this connection to the earth through our palms as we press into the fingertips to take some pressure out of the wrists. And whenever you're ready, we'll meet back in our tabletop, float our right leg out behind us and step it all the way forwards, coming into a lunge. So lifting out of our front leg. And taking a nice wide stance in our lunge. So notice, is our left thigh knee in line with our right foot? If it is, we'll probably feel really, really wobbly and unstable. So take a nice wide stance like we're on 2 parallel lines like a train track. And then taking our book or our brick to hand and just placing it down because we'll need it in a moment. Make sure we have it there. We'll float our fingertips towards the sky, nice and wide. And then soften the shoulders and the elbows, finding cactus arms. Keeping our front knee over our front ankle, front toes soft. Lengthening through our spine, finding a big breath in. As you breathe out, softening the left hand down onto your brick. Right hand comes to the rib cage as we spiral the ribs open to the right. Maybe we then keep the hand on the hip or reach it towards the sky. Listen to where there's space today in your twist. And if we want to, we can always take our brick higher. Really make your practice work for you. It's all about exploring your own body and appreciating how that might change from one day to the other. And just like we did in our seated twist, can we really explore this rotation through our rib cage? Nice. And softening the hand onto the shoulder, everybody meeting here. We'll send the elbow forwards and around one circle, and then back and around in another circle. And then lifting all the way back up towards the sky with the hands into our lunge, and softening, planting the palms, stepping your way back into your tabletop, just wiggling the hips from side to side, releasing here. And floating the left leg back behind us, stepping it all the way forwards, finding your lunge on the other side, lifting out of the front leg, setting your 2 lines at your train track. And lifting the hands, softening the shoulders and the elbows, cactus arms. And if this ever gets too much on the back knee, make sure to maybe take the knee a little bit further back so you aren't on the awkward part of the kneecap. And also if you've got a hard floor, you might like to double up on the mat, find a bit more padding, or bring a blanket or a cushion, anything at all under this knee space to pad it out. So finding one more breath here before floating the right hand down onto our prop. Left hand to the rib cage, spiraling the ribs over to the left side. Either keeping the hand on the hips or reaching towards the sky. Lengthening, finding space as we rotate. Nice, breathing here. Noticing the front toes, and if they're gripping onto the mat for dear life, is there a way we can find a softness? And everybody meeting, hand on the shoulder, circling the elbow forwards. Nice. And all the way back. Then lifting into our lunge, fingertips rise before softening to the ground. Planting the palms, tabletop, just shake the hips from side to side. And then tucking the toes back under. We'll reach the arms out in front, pressing down through the palms, making our way into our downward facing dog. Really leading with the hips. The hips are the highest point of the body. And imagine you've got a flag from your bottom that you're trying to shake. So bending the knees as much as we want to, finding one more breath here. And this time as slow as we can go. We'll bend the knees and bring them down to the ground. But really, really, really slowly. Just finding this connection to our center. And as the knees lower, we'll take them wide, bringing the big toes to touch. Sitting the hips back on the heels. Chest and forehead down towards the ground in a child's pose. So we can also use our support here from our bricks and blocks to lift the earth up to us, perhaps coming underneath the forehead or underneath the hips, between the hips and the heels. And in any yoga practice at any point, know that you can trust in your child's pose. And come down here to the ground and take some time to just refocus your attention back on your breath. Take a few moments to yourself and simply be here. Nice and slowly, in your own time, lift your props away. Come all the way back. But this time, as we start to lift, we'll roll forwards. Sending the legs back behind us, softening the thighs and the hips down to the ground. Lifting onto our forearms. Bringing our elbows underneath our shoulders and our feet nice and wide on our mat. We can take them even wider if we want to, it depends on our body shape. Just really listen to what feels good. As we press down through the palms and the forearms, we'll lift our heart space a little further forwards. Finding extension through our spine and our sphinx pose. Keeping our glutes nice and soft. Our head and neck an extension of our spine. Finding one more breath here before releasing. Bringing the hands back to the rib cage As we slowly start to press up, we'll sit straight back on the tucked toes. Pressing into the palms, floating the knees, lifting the hips high, downward facing dog. Pedaling through the heels, nice. One more breath here before walking the hands back towards the feet, finding a forward fold with our feet hips distance apart, feeling that release in the head, neck and arms, bending the knees. Bend the knees even more, and slowly start to roll up to standing. Mountain pose or Tadasana. Finding our sturdy foundation in our mountain pose, we'll float our fingertips wide and reaching for the sky. And then palms float together down at the heart. And then all the way onto our sitting bones. And sending our sitting bones to the back of our mat, we'll bend our knees generously. And sending our hands to these two bony landmarks either side of the pelvis. And becoming aware of this space again, just like we did when we were on the ground. So are we rocking all the way back or all the way forwards? And can we find this space right in the center of these 2 points? Finding a long line from our tailbone all the way to the crown of our head. Eventually bringing the palms together at the heart. And breathing here in our chair pose. Can we feel our weight spread evenly through all 4 corners of our feet? And notice if the knees are splaying out or splaying in here. Can we keep this connection all the way from our hip space down through our femur, our thigh bone, to our knees, down to our shins, to our ankle, to our feet. We're finding this strength in our lower body. One more breath here. As you exhale, lengthen the legs. Start to take your weight over to your right leg. Then actively lift out of the right hip. Left leg just comes off the earth slightly. And straight away, notice how you feel here. Notice what it feels like to live on one leg. And if you're feeling a bit wobbly, we can always come to the wall for support. If there's a chair, a table, anything at all nearby, just take what you need. Actively lifting out of this hip. We might like to stay here. Or start to explore bringing the left toes to the ground and the heel to the inside of the right ankle. Maybe we lift the foot a little higher. Wherever we are today, keep breathing, keep softening, and find your version of your tree pose. So we're finding even more space, also strengthening through the hip here. Hands can stay firmly on the hips. Maybe you float the palms together at the heart like I've done. And if we have a little bit more space around the upper body, we might like to soften into our cactus arms. But wherever we are, just keep noticing if we're popping and locking into this right hip and really lifting our way out, sending away through the heel into the earth. One more breath here before coming all the way back down. Hands come to the hips as we rock them from side to side. And we're coming back to our mountain pose, taking our weight over into our left leg. As we lift the right leg away from the ground, press away through the heel, really imagine that you have roots shooting from the sole of your foot down to the ground as we rise up tall like our tree. And taking your version of this posture today. Perhaps the right heel comes to the inside of the ankle. Maybe we lift the leg a little higher. Keeping the softness in the left knee. Hands resting wherever they lie. Notice where your awareness is here. Come to check in with the breath if we've lost it or wandered away. Inhaling completely. Exhaling completely. Finding one more breath here. Before releasing, coming back down to our mountain pose, shaking everything out. Whew. Take a big breath in. Big breath out. Lovely. Then coming back to our mountain, checking your feet, checking your foundation, floating the fingertips wide, reaching for the sky. Palms come together down at the heart, sitting back in our chair. Noticing the pelvis space, noticing the sitting bones. Keeping the feet firmly planted, keeping those roots from our tree shooting from the soles of our feet down through our mat into the ground beneath us. One more breath here. And then lengthening the legs, chin tucks in towards the chest, we roll down to the ground. Hugging opposite hand to opposite elbow. Just releasing as we swing heavily from side to side like a pendulum. Planting the palms. Either coming straight down into your child's pose or walking the hands forwards, lifting the hips high, downward facing dog. And if you're in down dog, slowly bringing the knees to the earth, everybody meeting in a child's pose. Make your child's pose work for you. If it doesn't feel good to have the knees as wide, bring them a little bit closer together. We can soften the arms, soften the elbows. And just notice here in the space in your body where you feel your breath the most. Really send your attention there. Finding 3 more full inhales and exhales. After your final exhale, slowly lifting all the way back up to your tabletop. Take your time to arrive there. We'll plant the right palm down and lift the left arm towards the sky. Reaching, finding space, and then threading the left hand through and under the bridge of the right arm. We'll come to rest on the left ear. Another place where our props might come in handy if we want to lift the ground up to us with our head and neck. We're keeping the hips nice and lifted. Pressing actively into the right palm, but keeping it soft still. One more breath here. Really releasing into your twist. And then pressing through the right palm, lifting all the way back up and out, finding space before coming back to our tabletop, planting the left palm, finding our thread the needle on the other side as we reach the right hand high and thread it through and under the bridge of the left arm, resting on the right ear. One more breath before pressing into the left palm. Slowly unraveling, lifting back out and releasing. Scooting the legs to one side and coming through to sit on your mat, right in the center. We'll keep the knees bent, floating the fingertips out in front. And we'll make our way down to the ground. But we have two options here. So we can either just come down to the ground using our arms and our forearms to support us, or we can take this option where we'll find a bit more of a connection to our center. So softening the shoulders, reaching the fingertips out, curling the chin towards the chest. And start to really slowly roll down, as slow as you can go. Can we go even slower? One part of the spine touches at a time. Nice. And when you arrive on your mat, lengthening the legs out long, reaching the arms back, taking a big breath in, big breath out, arms soften. Bending our left knee, bringing our foot to the ground. And then cross our right ankle over the top of our left thigh, and maybe we stay here. This is where we are today. We might like to explore interlacing the hands around the left hamstring and lifting the left shin parallel to the sky, keeping the feet nice and active. But notice if the head, neck, shoulders start to curl up like this, and if they do, can we soften, maybe bringing the hands back down and the foot to the earth. So in time, we might find a bit more space, but for now, just being really present with how we are. On your next exhale, soften the legs. Bring the right foot to the ground, crossing the left ankle over the top of the right thigh. And this is a great opportunity to appreciate how you might feel very different on one side to the other. So rather than judging ourselves, can we just simply notice and breathe? Maybe we interlace the hands behind the hamstring, lift the shin parallel to the sky. And we might like to start closing the eyes again or softening the gaze. On your next exhale, soften both feet down and take them as wide as the mat, just exploring our windscreen wipers one more time. The knees roll over to the right and over to the left. And back over to the right and over to the left. Nice. Floating back to center, feet back to parallel, lifting our hips up and over to the left side of our mat. Then hugging our knees in towards us and traveling them over towards the right side. So keeping the legs stacked if we can, as much as we can, keeping our shoulder blades rooting down towards the ground. Another space where we might like our blocks is either underneath the knees or in between the knees. So we're finding this twist here through our centre, but keeping it nice and gentle. Hands might want to stay here. Maybe come to cactus arms. Perhaps they reach out long. One more breath here. Before softening, hugging the knees back in first. And then down to the ground. Hips come up and over to the right side. Knees hug in and then float over to the left side. Notice where the arms are. Notice the shoulder blades, the twist through our centre. And if our feet are coming up all the way near our bottom, can we find a bit more space? Take them a little bit further out to create a little bit less of a compression. Finding one more breath here. Before hugging the knees in. Coming back to centre. Walking the hips back to the middle of our mat. Hugging everything in, curling the forehead towards the knees. And releasing the head down as we rock to the right. Rock to the left. And then soften into our final and most precious resting posture. Shavasana. We might like to keep the knees bent, how we started off with our feet wide on the mat. Or maybe lengthen the legs out long. The arms can be anywhere at all, in the space where they feel most comfortable. If you want to put on any warm clothes, then do so. Bring a pillow underneath the head and neck, or cushions underneath the lower part of the hamstrings, really nice to soften the lower back to the ground. So wherever you are, start to find this heaviness on the earth. Start to scan through your body from the crown of your head all the way to the tip of your toes. And ask yourself, is there anywhere I can soften a little more? Can the shoulders melt down? Can the fingers curl naturally in towards the palm of the hand? And can the toes relax? Can we come here to simply notice our breath again? Inhaling and exhaling naturally, without forcing anything. Taking as much time in your Shavasana as you would like to, allowing the benefits of your practice to be sealed within you. Or if you have to move away from the mat, into the rest of your day maybe, bring the palms together, thumbs towards the heart. Take a breath in, take a breath out. Thank you for taking this time to practice and share your energy and your love with me. From my heart to yours, Namaste.